My name is Bart. I'm from Poland, Warsaw, and I work with Freyer, especially with software and regulatory intelligence. But I have a very strong background in cosmetics. In fact, before I moved over into that field, I was a safety assessor. You might recognize that term. So I was the guy signing off papers on the cosmetic product safety reports for people across Europe. So cosmetics is certainly a place where I feel very comfortable. Um, I have a very strong feeling that if I ask you to raise your hands and who knows Freyr and what do we do exactly, there will be very few hands raised. Is there anybody who has very close experience with Freyr in this room? You got, oh, there's one person there. There's one person. That's exactly what I expected, more or less. So I just want to tell you a few things about who we are, where do we come from, and why we're here. The core of the business is in the pharma. And if we were in a pharma conference, probably it would be the opposite. Everybody would kind of recognize us, especially in regulatory intelligence. If if we listed global 25 pharma companies, I would easily say that 10 of them have interacted with us for some form of regulatory intelligence. Four out of them are currently using the kind of a full coverage. That means both the services, the data, and the software and the technology stack that we provide. There's another four in the pipeline. So over there, we feel very strong. And at some point, the decision was made that we've built up some level of value, and we can offer now this to other industries. And cosmetics was kind of a chosen as a big drive. So since a few years in Freyer, more and more people from that industry, from different kind of specialties, are being employed by the company, and that part of the company is growing very, very strongly. So what I'd like to do today, first of all, what's going to be happening on the screen is going to be very loosely attached to what I'll be saying to you. Like I said, I'd like to make this an interesting presentation for you, and my goal personally for you is to understand what this term regulatory intelligence really is about, why you'd want to use it, why this would bring some benefit to your company, your business, and your professional life, and how it's normally done. So this will be a kind of a peek behind the scenes on how we operate. What's the actual mechanism that happens that the end result of it is you getting the information that you need for your specific circumstance that you find yourself in. That's the kind of a goal here. So some of the challenges in the industry are the three examples of them are that the trends are changing, the guidelines from health authorities are changing, and depending on how wide the distribution of your brand is geographically, especially, this will carry on multiplying. If you're just in Europe, it's a pretty stable situation. Now, if you start expanding into other markets, then it gets more and more complicated because you have different health authorities, you've got different national authorities. Some of them are creating their own regulations. A lot of people around the world are copying European regulations because that seems to be the most stable system and the kind of most comprehensive. So that's a trend out there. But the further you go, the more complicated it gets. So the way we approach this idea is that when we provide a regulatory intelligence service, or RI for short, I think that would be good for today. When we provide RI to people, we want to compress this into a single channel of delivery. So you don't have to go to 20 different websites and speak in different languages, have different operatives in different countries. You get a single channel where the information that you receive is all that you are looking for. Another thing, specifically in cosmetics, is that a lot of the activity, the regulatory activity, is ingredient driven. It's different to other industries. Over here, we get those changes on ingredients happening all the time. Let's say the most famous one of the recent times is the ban on lilial from perfume from fragrances. So this kind of changes are happening constantly, and they are happening all over the world. One way to solve that is to completely automate formula management in terms of the regulatory coverage. So there are systems which can be used where you would upload your formulas, your whole portfolio, every SKU that you have, along with its geographical location, where it's actually entering the market. And then the system will be covering the safety and stability of your formulations in that market for you. Every time there's a change in a local regulations, you get a flag saying list of all your SKUs or your products saying those products are now going to be they will have to get some changes in the next 12 months, for example. That's typical with European Commission, right? You get a new regulation published. They say one of the preservatives, you have to reduce the concentrations. You got 12 or 24 months, depending on how they prescribe that. So the system would tell you ahead that such and such of your formulas and in such and such countries are affected, and you've got 12 months to act, to rotate the stock, to change the formulas, and bring the new stock to the market. So this is the kind of real life scenario for what would happen. And then obviously the manual process. Considering how much regulatory data there is out there right now, we've gone too far in advancement to really carry on doing things manually. We have some interesting technology solutions. I'll tell you about a few of them as we go along. You'll see that a lot of this can be automated to a large extent. So the services, what people ask for when they come and they ask for regulatory intelligence. Of course, they want to maintain their registrations, and they want to cover the market entry for products. Those are the two biggest ones. You want to enter new markets. You want to make sure that products that are in the market, they sit there without any kind of unforeseen things happening to them if the regulation changes. You don't want to have recalls. That's simple as that. You don't want to have to pull out your stock in an urgency and pay for it. So how do we make it happen actually with our clients? What's the way to deliver that service? To me, there's three things. There's the relevancy. We never aspired at any point to be the Wikipedia of regulatory information. The systems and the services under which we operate, we never have a case where you are logging into some big system and then you have to look for what you are about to find. That would be just one step ahead from the normal internet. I mean, things are in the internet and we would just compress it to some one environment. We don't do that. We begin every relationship by studying the case of the client, understanding what specific market that is, what the products are, what the countries are. The people who handle that, they obviously have experience in those countries, so they know what the local challenges are. And then the data gets narrowed down. So what you are receiving is supposed to be what you need, and not just a full-blown wave of regulatory information being thrown at you every day. We actually don't want to give you too much for your operational comfort. So the second part is coverage, exactly. The coverage, you need to get everything you need to operate and not much more. That is the kind of a goal here. We can't give you 3/4 of the information you need. That's never going to work. We need to give you exactly what you need, completely exhaust the topic that is required for you, but not start sending you random news and bits or like, oh, have you heard what the government in Thailand did last week? No, you don't want that, because that will just clog up the system, and you don't want to have to handle all that info. That's why we are for. And the last part is the trust. So if at the very end of this, what we want is for you to be able to make decisions and take action based on what we give you. If you're not able to do that, then the whole thing just falls apart, and it was all an academic exercise. So the way that the system is organized on our end, it's probably quite a complicated process, but we mix RI professionals, people who deal with just that discipline, with local representatives in specific countries who have lived there, they work there, they understand their industry on their end, they understand how their government handles things or how the local authorities enforce those things, and then we mix technology with that. So we got plenty of bots searching for information, translating languages, picking up information from different alphabets. We have very strong teams in Asia, in India, China, Japan, Malaysia. If you kind of talk to people from that space, like crawler bots, machine learning and all that, they will tell you straight away that handling those alphabets and those languages, it's not such an easy task. It's nice to talk about, putting it into practice. It's not exactly the same as looking for information in English. So thanks to all those people on the ground over there, we managed to provide a service where we are pretty confident that we can handle all those specific areas with different languages, different alphabets. Okay. So how do we, since I said it has to be relevant, how do we actually make it relevant for you? Very quick run through 4 main formats for regulatory intelligence that you may receive. That's ingredient regulations, regulatory insights, structured reports, and something called GRR, which is a question and answer system, where you ask the question and the system provides you an answer. There's 4 others, but they are called, we refer to them as supplementary formats. Ingredient regulations. There's a platform called iReady. That this was part of the decision to start branching outside of pharma and into the world of cosmetics. That was precisely when that happened. This is the formulation management tool. So this is the place where you can upload all your formulas. Exactly what I described initially. You can upload all your formulas, mark down what SKUs they are, which countries they cover, and then the system, what it's going to tell you, it's going to allow you to plan market entry to any country in the world with recognizable regulations for cosmetics, and then it's going to maintain that stability. So the system will be communicating with you constantly. If at some point in Brazil they say that phenoxyethanol has to be 0.8% and you've got 1%, every SKU that you have in Brazil containing phenoxyethanol is going to be alerted. You'll get an email sent out of the system, and you're going to have pop-ups coming in when you log in, telling you exactly which products are affected and what is the estimated deadline before you have to rotate that stock and bring in a new formulation. So that would be the kind of a example of this. From a different end, insights. So this is strict regulatory intelligence, how we deliver the data. The insights are one of the main formats, and those are quick snippets of information. It's like a news service. This is the tool that is meant to keep you out of date. When we understand you, when we learn your case initially, like I said, and we know what you are looking for, what are your critical points in your business and in your geographical locations, you will be getting those insights which are defined by the metadata you give us, right? If we know that you are worried about taxes and duty on a specific border, then your insights in that specific country, they will be coming down to you to cover that topic. If you're more on the technical side and formulation side, or perhaps claims, or the more marketing side, again, the insights coming down to you will be narrowed down to that topic. Each insight is a very quick briefing and a link to the source of information. So the idea is that we tell you something's happened, and then you decide how far you want to go. I think what's worth mentioning, though, here on the insights is that if you are using the Impact platform to receive them, you've got some distribution tools inside Impact. So you can then further, if let's say one of you is responsible for regulations in your company, you can then upload a list of emails from your team, and out of Impact, you can create mailing lists, sending out those insights to them. You can also have different mailing lists. So you could have the technology team, the regulatory team, the marketing people. And then you can mark whether this is just an information, or you're actually informing them inside that insight. That action has to be taken by a specific deadline. So it's not just the delivery from us to you. Impact also allows you to distribute that information further among yourselves in some useful ways. So another thing are structured reports. That is a complete reverse from the idea of insights. The structured reports are something opposite. This is a very big document, and that is a comprehensive document, mostly used not to keep you up to date, but allow you to plan your operations. So an example of structured reports are country requirements. And they have a specific table of contents. It's always the same one. And this also allows you to make comparisons, because if every single country follows the same format inside our platform, then you can quickly run comparisons inside the system, I think along the lines of, please tell me what are the differences in labeling between Argentina, Thailand, and Germany. And the system will sort of provide you them next to each other. So structuring the reports is a great thing to speed up that kind of information search. Because if you think about it, each structured report, it's like a small book. It's covering a specific country. So you don't want to end up having to read through the whole book. You want to jump exactly to the information you are looking for. And the last part is the GRR. So this is a kind of an invention of ours. This is supposed to be the lightest part of the system and the quickest. It's a question and answer system. Inside the GRR, you would have categories of questions that you may ask. It could be regulatory, it could be marketing, it could be tax and duty. An example of question would be, do I need a free sale certificate in Israel for shampoos? I don't know if this is a good example, but for hair care brands, if I'm moving from another country and my products are registered in South America, do I need a free sale certificate in Israel? And the system will tell you yes or no, depending on the type of product you select. So you're selecting your question, which country this question is being asked to, what product type this is about, and then the system gives you yes or no, or a bit more explanation and links to follow, again, for your own study, so you can actually see where that information came from. So the coverage is quite enormous in impact, to be honest. And at some point, I will tell you a little bit about how we actually make it happen. The supplementary content types, they are there just to fill out some gaps. Very often we get asked by certain clients to cover the activities of the competition in a particular space, and then we can give them sort of news announcements from. The example of this would be that you are very interested in a specific market, let's say in a country that is not your first choice for market entry. This could be Nigeria, this could be Kenya, Egypt or Morocco or South Africa, the 5 largest African markets. And you're not yet ready to do this, but you'd like to know if your competitors found a way. So if you're a hair care brand and you want to know if a specific competitor of yours has already started selling in Kenya, as soon as their products appear in shops in that country, we can have an alert popping up on the system. So again, this is just an example of what could happen. So now is probably the moment when I have to speed up, because this is where really complicated slides start. But I'd just like to sort of give you a few industry case studies of specifically what is happening there. The first one are CMR, so the carcinogenic, mutagenic, reprotoxic products, and that is strictly inspired by EU. But over here there's a catch. Because EU is easy, and we all know when things happen in EU, you kind of get it. Even if you're a member of some associations, you get it straight away. Any kind of news, like CTPA in UK, for example, they always announce everything that happens there. But here, one thing we found out is something that we called a regulatory drift. So the fact that when EU does something, you can tell more or less how many months it will take after that some other parts in the world will do exactly the same thing, because this is seen as a kind of a source and inspiration to other governments, or they blatantly just figure out, we don't want to do this, we'll just copy what they did over there. That's often a case in the Gulf Cooperation Council, so the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, or ASEAN Association of Countries, so that's Malaysian, Indonesian countries. Very often they will just figure out, we just don't want to do this. They announce a new regulation in the UK, 6 months later they start working on exactly the same regulation on their end. So one of the things we figured out is that we seem to see a pattern, more or less, how it works, and we can predict that, okay, you just had to handle this case in the EU. We're going to tell you that you're going to have to handle exactly the same case in Indonesia or in the Gulf in such and such months, more or less, because that's what we expect they will do. Microplastics in France, or recently there was the dioxin in specifically a state. So France, of course, that's a country, but New York, that's even smaller. That's a state. So especially for brands present in America, one thing that sometimes happens, you probably know about the Californian regulations. They have their own system called the Prop 65, I believe. And then New York State has also started passing this kind of regulations. That's an interesting thing, because you may not see it straight away. If you're looking on a country level and you think, okay, I need to follow the regulations in the US, there's always a small chance that you will not notice the fact that individual states over there, that's how their legal system works, they can pass local laws that will affect just that one state. So lots of things happening in California, and quite a few things happening in the US. So this is a kind of a thing. All those case studies I've got here, the real life examples of what we did with clients. So this was affecting one of them, and another one. That's a very recent one, literally from just a few months ago. Big brand from Europe is considering Africa. They feel ready for that move, and they would like to plan. They don't really know how to start. They know they want to, but they feel completely hopeless about it. They don't know what the risks are, what the chances, what is the likelihood of success, and they want to know where to go. So initially what was identified is South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, Morocco. And funny enough, each one of those countries is a completely different story. I believe in Nigeria, for example, the system is kind of similar. It's different, but it follows the similar concept that we have in Europe with the responsible person. So there is some kind of a registered entity that holds the products in the country. In Egypt, though, in order to import products from outside, you have to have a company, an actual company registered inside, and that company has to hold a license to be able to bring in the products. So the logic is reversed. You first have to be allowed to bring in the products to then be able to register them. So each one of those countries is a completely different story. And here, this was not a matter of monitoring ingredients or monitoring a specific formulation. This was about presenting a game plan, and also through some of our affiliates, giving them the local coverage. So we do have people in Nigeria, for example, and South Africa, actual Freyr employees, whereas in the other countries we got associates, so professionals who live and work there. They're not employees of the company, but they basically deliver services on our behalf. So this is again an interesting case that with Nigeria, it actually took a real person getting in the car and driving to one of the agencies and having a conversation in person over there to retrieve that information. So depending on the country you're talking about, some of them are very easy. You just take it off the internet. In other places, you have to get there and do it face to face. Okay, yeah, so speaking of which, how do we source that data? There's kind of three things I'd like to say. First of all, there's the automatic extraction by bots and crawlers. So those are little small AI tools that recognize language patterns. You may have heard the expression NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. That is kind of how the people programming those things. This is what they use. So those bots, they recognize specific words, sentences, combinations of those, and great thing about them is that they don't get tired. So you can ask them to check your websites every single day. For example, you can have a list of things you want covered. That I can tell you is how we cover the GRR questions. When I said that we have this huge database of questions and answers, if you start thinking about it for a moment, you'll be like, okay, but how do you maintain an answer to, let's say, 5,000 questions? I mean, each question has a bot crawling all the sources for the answer. So if that source of information changes, there's an alert coming to us, to our central system, saying that that file you're following, that guidance, or that announcement from a health authority, there's a new one in this space right now. So you might have to come and update the answer to that GRR question answer thingy. There's interfaces to other databases and data sources. There's plenty of them. We all know COSINC. We all know the appendices of the European regulation. There's other places in the world that there's also databases from raw materials manufacturers, and all of this exists. If you know how to connect it, if you know how to interact with those people, some of those data can be just transferred between two different systems. But the third one, and that's the interesting one, that's the local SMEs and regional affiliates. So that's kind of like the example with Nigeria, but also the example of China, Japan, and ASEAN, which they are huge markets, but they are challenging to us looking at it from, let's say, European perspective or American perspective for other reasons. And we need people who live there and understand this. So health authorities from all those countries, we have some kind of a relationship with them. Then there's obviously the regulatory bodies or associations, as CIR, as CCS, any other across the world. And of course, this is it. This is the secret ingredient. So Freyr, as an organization, like I said, we may not be a household name in cosmetics, but we've been around for a while. And we got this thing called Freyr X, which basically means the extended team. Those are the associates working across the world. There's very few countries that we don't cover at the moment. A lot of them are covered by actual Freyr employees, so we have local teams. But in many cases, we have just some regulatory professionals, very small companies or mid-sized companies, and they work in a partnership with us. So we have become a bit of a giant in the regulatory space, but at the same time we have never lost the personal touch and the locality of the service. at the end of the day, there's always somebody real working your case in a specific location, whichever continent that is in. So it's not a bunch of theory guys who've read a few documents online sitting in Europe and they think they can handle an African country or a South American country. No, there is somebody who speaks the language, they grew up over there, they know how the system works, and they'll be having some responsibility over your case, whatever that is. That's kind of how we structured it. Okay. So this is where it gets really complicated, and I think I'll be moving very quickly here. So this is exactly the pages with a look inside on the bots panel, where you have a list of, well, in this case, that account has where are we? I think we got something like 390 bots working on this account, and each of them are tracking specific application, specific information for a specific client. And basically, every time they get a hit, they provide some kind of an alert. So there could be a source, the website source. But another thing that we often do is we have bots tracking a specific document. So you know how you got on those government websites, you got PDFs over there, and in some governments are a little more reasonable about it, so they will make an announcement when they are publishing a new one. But with some, they will just change what's inside that PDF, and everything looks the same on the outside. And you're like, well, we changed the document, and you're like, yeah, but we didn't tell us. So the bots can track the actual link to the PDF. If the size of the PDF changes, if the words inside the PDF change, then alert comes up. So this kind of tracking is also doable. You'll allow me if I just jump through this, because this is not visually, this is not very pleasing, but a different kind of service that comes through. This is iReady, so this is the part where we manage formulations. Inside iReady, you would have a very strict focus on ingredients and all regulations that could affect an ingredient. So this kind of goes beyond cosmetics, because there's REACH and REACH type regulations, so just chemical and raw material regulations from all those countries, because they can often affect us. Before they actually affect the cosmetic part, there might be a strictly chemical regulation affecting the system. So that is covered here. And then there are alerts and sort of flags coming up whenever something changes. In this case, this is a Canada change to azelaic acid concentrations, I believe. So this kind of flags come up. You can, if you are at the stage of creating a formula, if one of your formulators had an account over here, they can plan everything that they want to do. They can type in some mock formulas that they would be looking forward to do, and just see how it shapes up. Especially for the countries that they've been asked to send those formulas to. Then they can get to the precise, a more precise analysis, and there's actually a simplified safety assessment, so simplified CPSR module inside here. So it produces a kind of a mock CPSR. I think at some point we're very close to actually creating a really comprehensive one, where a safety assessor would walk in and they would just add the human touch to it, but a large part of the monotone part of the job would be done for them. So you can do those mock safety assessments yourself beforehand, before you actually send it to a safety assessor to get that CPSR for your product. So another nice thing to have in your formulation department. Okay. So that's a little bit about the case studies and what we actually do. And the next part is about what is our internal process. Obviously, I think hopefully we'll have a bit of a conversation at the end of this, but I just want to pause here, see if anybody has any immediate questions. And there is one person there. Hi.
Presumably all the information you're putting into the system is confidential. So if you're putting in a particular product, or all of your products, parts of your product and each ingredient, that information is confidential to you and isn't shared more widely?
Yeah. The easiest way I could describe it is similar software architecture to an email. So the email provider doesn't actually go and read your emails that you send. I mean, that's what they promise, but I know it is. But here the way it works is that you get a full admin account. So of course, if you are using any of those systems, you get your own admin account, and you got the training on anything you need to do within that system. Now, if you got technical issues and you want somebody to call in, you have to initiate that. And of course, part of using such a system is a full NDA contract between the two companies. So if a technician comes in to solve something for you, you have to initiate that. Nobody would ever come in on from our end. That would just not be a part of our SOP. Any more questions right now, or any comments? No, you good?
You mentioned kind of local knowledge aspect and having people on the ground, and that some countries are obviously harder than others to source information from changes from. Are there any countries that you know you don't have a presence in that you are looking to establish a presence in?
This is it's a tough question because if we don't have any presence at all, that may suggest that there's not much of a market there and nobody's asking for it. I don't think at the moment we don't have a presence anywhere that you would want us to have presence. That's the current case. And I'm just flipping exactly to the slide covering that, because we divided countries and sources of information by those 4 tiers. And there's a different strategy applied. I've mentioned that very initially with my kind of three fundamental ideas for RI. One of them was the coverage. We want to give you the full coverage, that you know that you received all the information you need, and for each of those tiers there's a completely different strategy to achieve that. For tier 1, it's pretty much our internal database, because we provide so many services on an ongoing basis through, let's say, US, EU, Canada, whether we have Australia as well. Also, the information there is in English, so it's very accessible to everybody. And we kind of very rarely have to do extra work. We maintain ourselves up to date because we are providers of services in those countries, so we ourselves cannot fall behind. So there's not much to do. Then there's tier 2 countries, and over there you can see that those bars over here, they kind of changing the balance, and the red bar is just Freyr's own global RI data pool, whereas the blue bar is notified bodies, health agency websites. This is the kind of a tier of countries where the bots come in especially useful, because they can track any announcement that are coming there, and those countries have a very good online presence. There might be language challenges, but there is no challenge in actually accessing that information if you know where to look for. If you move to the tier 3 countries, then regional affiliates and project associates, that's where that strength comes in. So now we are starting to rely on more data curation by the people who actually live there, and they can tell us what we have to know for those specific countries. And tier 4, we got third-party organizations, universities, in-person visit to HA offices, and that is a real case. Like I just said with Nigeria, I remember I was personally communicating with that colleague of mine. She was literally taking a car and had to go and sit down and have a meeting to get all the information needed for that specific client case in that country. So you will find that in quite a few places out there if you're moving into those markets which are outside of the main kind of business scope. So yeah, so there's different strategies, but for each type of a country, we have a way to get you the full package. Yeah, inside internally, please don't be bothered with all those little bits and bobs. I can tell you that in essence, the way we work is that we have an internal process where we have first somebody assigned to decide what you need. They're the ones talking to you, they are researching your case, they are learning about you, and they'll be also responsible for that relationship. So in a few months' time, if you say there's a little bit too much of that and there's quite not enough information on this, they'll be the ones adjusting. So there's somebody there to learn what you need, and then they are distributing that information. They are working with the technicians to assign the specific technology sources. They are checking if we need real people on the ground, finding that information for you. So for us, it's an internal process. This is how it's organized over there. Uh, but the goal is a complete coverage, right? So this is the kind of again an internal table talking about okay very specific categories, product categories and data categories within those products. So this is something that we figure out how to get that information. For you, it's a matter of telling us I need this information here and then. Okay, and just the last part is the tools. So all of this would not be possible without the technology solutions. We can do it, but nobody uses that. There's just no point in this day and age. There's no point. So 3 delivery models. The middle one is just data services. That's what I say. It just doesn't make any sense today to have us sending you newsletters and PDFs and articles about things. Pretty much everybody just goes for the technology assisted services because it's just so much nicer to have. So the 2 ways that you can do this is that you either take the platform yourself, and it happened quite a few times. There's companies out there that have existing RI departments, and they are pretty confident about it, but they would just like to have that assistance of having this this formatting that we have, the bots which are available. They can configure them themselves. It's not rocket science. We could teach anybody to use the bots, and they just want to use, for example, Freyer Impact to distribute that information inside their organization. They're completely self-sufficient. They just want the platform. The most often is the technology plus data. So they want to have all the benefits of technology, or whether that's Impact or whether that's iReady that covers the formulations, but they want us there behind driving that information. They don't want to be sitting there and researching. This is the case of most companies. They want growth externally by selling products, not growth internally by building new big departments inside their company. That seems to be our experience, what's coming from the clients. So Impact, not much more to say because pretty much everything I was telling you about comes through Impact, apart from the formulation management. So the formats, the insights, the structured reports, the question and answer, GRR system, the whole concept of curated information converging from all those points into one delivery model. So you log into one website, you get your own company domain, your own logins, you are in that internal environment of RI, and everything's waiting for you there. That's strictly speaking Impact. The second one is Freyer iReady. So this is the formula management tool. This is the one that tracks your concentrations against local regulations from different markets. So this is the one. And on iReady, I believe you'll get those presentations. I'm sure if you are interested, you can have a look at some of them. But for me, that's really everything I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much. I think I've seen some interested faces today, some keen eyes looking at this. So hopefully I've given you something that you were looking for over here. If you have any questions, let's begin. By the way, are you from which side of the company are you? Are you people from the regulatory side, formulation side? What's more or less you're the technical people, or you're more on the marketing and market entry side? What kind of a crowd is here today? Anybody wanna show of hands? Who's a formulator? Okay, and who's regulatory? Okay, mostly. And who's looking at market expansion and going to it's like a sales directors or people of this kind. Yeah, we got one. Wonderful. Okay. If there's no questions, that's fine. Great. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around at the show.